Hi, this is Steve Harper from yourcreativelife.com, answering a question today that somebody sent me about the value of and the danger of ChatGPT and AI. This is a really huge topic, and I'm gonna dip my toe in and talk a little bit about my thoughts about what's going on with this particular kind of technology and how it might impact the way I and other writers make our livings. So first of all, I am a big fan of computer technology. I actually spent 10 years of my professional life as a computer trainer as I was doing my acting stuff and moving into writing stuff, and did this privately and for a live corporate events company in New York. I have done and taught a number of computer programs to a number of unions, doormen and janitors and bakers, and to private people and to, family members. And I love technology. I love my computers. I love, setting up things and using spreadsheets and all sorts of technology. I'm a huge fan of. But I'm not necessarily a huge fan of ChatGPT and AI when it comes to the TV writing work and the film writing work that my colleagues and I do. So here's why. Look, I think that I love the notion of the advancements of technology. But when we get to a space where the advancements of technology would actually mean fewer writers are at work, and that you need to sort of move some writers out of the way so that a computer can do most of the work, that's where I'm not on board. The bottom line is today, ChatGPT and AI are not good at writing scripts or poetry or literary things of any kind. And those things will probably, its ability to do those things will get better over time. But I don't really think that's the issue. The issue is this. As a writer, I bring my entire life to the table. I bring my trauma, I bring my history as a Black man and as a gay man and as a man who was born in New York. I bring all of that stuff to the table as a writer. That's what I offer. My hopes, my dreams, the things that I think about, the things that I'm obsessed with, all of those things are part of the value of what makes my writing unique and powerful and helpful if I'm writing something by myself or if I'm writing something with a team. And it is the process of getting a bunch of people together who are not only talented and skilled, but also have all of these diverse spaces to bring, whether it's, gender identity or sexuality or ethnicity or religion or background of any kind, as we sit together and create material that is seen by the entire world. All of those things feed the work and feed the opportunity to create better and better work. ChatGPT and AI is, a way to, on some level, automate these things so that what it actually does, the process is that it can, cull the internet. It can read all this stuff, right, and digest all these things and then spit out something that mimics somehow the things that have gone before. So let's talk a little bit about that. Number one, it mimics. So we're not necessarily talking about an original space. We're really talking about mimicry. We're really talking about regenerating what has gone before. So there is one of my problems. For so many years, the entertainment industry has been ruled by a certain demographic, right? And so those folks, whether you want to think of them as dominant culture folks or men or white men or straight white men, whatever you want to think of, those folks have created the vast majority of things that have gotten out there on the air. Doesn't mean that other people haven't been able to do it. But if ChatGPT is culling everything and spitting out some facsimile of what has gone before, chances are it's spitting out material that is tried and true and old and traditional, and not really necessarily the stuff that we are thinking about today, stuff that involves and absorbs and considers the dynamics of diversity or sexuality or women's issues or you name it. So first of all, we're talking about a very narrow bandwidth that a computer can hope to do. And I think part of the process of being in the writer's room is that all of those people who are there to support are bringing everything that they have to bear. So I think it's a problem then to hopefully, I think one of the things that we know as writers is that the producers, the AMPTP, they're really interested in focusing on ways to use AI to, bottom line, save them money. I could envision a circumstance, which I'm not interested in, where producers saving money have one computer and say 3 writers in a writer's room as opposed to 10 writers. And they would hope that the AI would spit out something that those 3 or so writers, could rewrite and create and make something good out of. A couple of problems with that. Number one, I imagine it would be a super hard job for any of those writers to take the kind of thing that you're getting out of AI that is entirely derivative, that comes from this other space, and make it somehow fit with human dynamics and modern circumstances and a continuing storyline. And there are so many ways in which that becomes a much harder job. The second issue, though, that I have is that if you think about this imaginary future where there are 3 writers on a computer, who are those 3 writers going to be? Chances are those 3 writers are going to be among the people who get hired the most, among the people who are the top echelon of writers who've had the most experience. And we know statistically that those people will not be diverse. They may not be women. They're going to be those same 3 people who we've seen, perhaps those brand name showrunners or those brand name writers who've done those brand name things. And the industry, as you can imagine, is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller because you're going to only need a few people to create an entire TV show. So in my mind, we're talking about wiping out an entire class of people, an entire career base, an entire group of artists coming out of, drama schools and playwriting schools and, novelists and people who are sort of coming up trying to make a living using their skills, using their imaginations, their history, their trauma, removing them for the sake of a certain, say, 1% making more money, right? And in the meantime, as I imagine, TV and film would get worse and worse and worse and more derivative because it's going to be harder and harder and harder and harder to create new, interesting, dynamic, viable, mind-bending, eye-catching, heart-rending, spirit-filled work. It's just going to be harder. Now, there is a way on the positive side that I could imagine that maybe a computer gets used to do some of the very simple things. I'm on a show now where it takes place in different parts of the country, and I can imagine saying to a computer, find me a part of the country where this is true and that is true and this is true and that is true, and allowing the computer to do that. Or find me a title for a story that blah, and the computer might be able to do that. But in terms of creating an entire piece, here's the other thing too. In the world of the TV writing that I do, every one of those tiers, if you write a script, that's the sort of big tier. But before that, you're writing an outline. And before that, you're writing a story area. The outline is considered a story. So sometimes you might see on a TV or movie, story by, or, screenplay by, or teleplay by. Those things are all tiers of, financial remuneration. So if, a computer is writing the story area, or if the computer is writing the outline before the writer writes the script, literally that's taking money out of that writer's hands, because you're saying that, or the studios would be saying, well, he didn't actually write the outline, so we're not going to pay him for the outline. We're going to pay him for the script. And again, as you can see, we're talking about shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking the viability of making a living, a middle-class living. as a television writer based on the notion of this computer, which theoretically would do more and more and more of the work. So it's a very complicated process, and one that I don't think is a good idea, because I think ultimately, if we're going as far out as we can in terms of the idea of these computers coming into the creative process, not only are we talking about material that I think will not be very good, but we're also talking about an entire class of people who will not be working, who will have to find something else to do. And we're talking about not only screenwriters and not only television writers, but we're probably talking about playwrights, and we're talking about poets, and we're talking about people who write copy for magazines. We're talking about journalists. We're talking about novelists. We're talking about anybody who spends their life pouring their heart and soul into character is potentially out of work by the notion of this kind of automation. And I think once we go that far, then we're really impacting people all over the United States who will then be hard-pressed, perhaps, to make a living. So very complicated circumstance. I'm going to put some articles below here where you can read about ChatGPT. Feel free to share your thoughts and ask questions about this very complicated topic. But for my money, I certainly think it's a topic worth fighting against and knowing all about, so that we can really continue to impress upon the powers that be the importance of humans, of people creating scripts. And the WGA has said and has put forth languaging that says that a script must be done by a human being. So that's basically the bottom line. And the producers are not really interested in that. They're interested in something else that I think really ultimately could spell disaster for me and you and anyone who wants to make a living as a creative person who uses words and puts those on the page and makes a living. I think that's what's at stake when we talk about the notion of ChatGPT and AI with respect to the TV writing and film writing space. So thanks for joining me. I hope you like this video and this YouTube channel. Definitely check out the offerings at yourcreativelife.com, where you can find out all about my coaching. Sign up for my free newsletter, which comes out every month. And listen to the Secret Writer podcast, which I host with Nick Job, my friend who is also a writer and a writing coach. Thanks for joining me, and hope to see you next time.